Hey, Stan here. Welcome to the Drum Cave. What I want to do this week is give you something practical. So it's something that I think is a good reminder for people, but it's also expanding on what we spoke about last week. I mean, it's all well and good to call you out in last week's video, but it's probably a good idea to give you some actionable steps, right? So whether I'm working with amateurs, pros, teachers, whatever, the pattern is often the same. They show up to the practice room, they put time in, and yet nothing happens. Why? Well, in order to broach this properly, let me take you back. So when I was just 16 years old, I was online and I found a hand exercise sheet with 8 exercises on it with a comment underneath that just said, do these daily. So this was like my first taste of stickings or patterns outside of playing along to songs or grooves based on a song specifically. So exercises designed for broader development. So I was looking at the sheet and to be honest, I had no guide, no plan, no teacher, didn't really know what to do. And right then in that moment, without knowing, I actually made one of the best decisions, one of the biggest decisions of my drumming life. Now, it's not a new concept, but what I decided to do was to treat it like a workout plan. So one exercise at a time for a set amount of time, a single layer of focus. So this was well before my fitness journey had kicked in and I'd learned the value of having a workout plan in fitness. But looking at the sheet, it just made sense that if I wanted to improve, then I just had to do every single exercise on there a lot. So in that moment, it dawned on me something that I still carry to this day. Progress is built with deliberate, repetitive, and often unexciting work. Unfortunately, not everything that we practice is supposed to be fun. In fact, I will say, the things that are the most dry often lead to the biggest breakthroughs. Here's the thing though, when you're young and you're free of responsibility, a lot of the time this just happens by default. You can actually lose hours and hours to this sort of material because you have those hours to lose in the first place. There's simply no risk in the attempt because you have no worries. You can lean in because at that age, life is simple. But guess what? Over time, that window does close. Life kicks in, work gets heavy, you've now got kids, a wife, a husband, a dog, a cat, a job, a business you're trying to get off the ground. Life. Now you're actually managing time instead of losing yourself in it. And slowly, the quality of your practice starts to deteriorate. And without realizing, what happens is you start going through the motions. You start going through the same old exercises, the same old things that you can do each and every time you sit down on the kit. Now, on the odd occasion, you might start exploring something new, but you don't spend enough time on it, locking it in to see the fruits of your labor. And then you try to start using it way too early. And well, you get frustrated, and I know you know what I'm talking about. You had all the best intention of the time that you had to sit down and get some work done, but ultimately you walk away feeling like you did some work, but nothing actually happened. Now, here's the truth. You did not lose your edge. You simply lost your process. Most drummers hit a wall not because they're lazy. Okay, some of you are, but simply because they've forgotten how they got good in the first place. They've mistaken movement for progress, and progress, as you know, leaves very honest clues. So here's what I did, even back at 16. I built a very clear structure for all of my practice sessions going forward, a framework that I still use to this day. Now, it would be many years before I actually named this system. That sort of came out of getting into education and teaching because I would see this problem time and time again with students. But I knew that I had created something that, at least in my head, it worked. A mindset shift as to how you practice. I essentially created a foolproof system that could help me when I got lost, that worked whether I had 10 minutes or 2 hours, a system that produced results without hacks or guesswork, a system I could trust. So this is what I call my perfect practice formula. And let me break it down for you. All right, so this is a 3-stage formula, and stage 1 or phase 1 is what I call foundation. So the goal with this stage is to simply learn the movement or the sticking or the pattern. That's it. You're just getting the body and the mind used to feeling what it's going to need to do. So slow it down, be methodical, and go for quality. Now, you do not move forward from this phase until you really understand what you're supposed to be working on. Dynamics, note value, whatever you're working on is made up of, you're doing it to the highest standard. So if you're guessing, you're not ready. Guesswork does not lead to growth. Only quality and clarity does. Stage 2 or phase 2, application. Now it's time to do the work. So this is the most crucial step in the perfect practice formula and the step that most people avoid, especially as you get older. And why? Because this is where the reps gets done. This is where the bulk of your growth will come from. So the goal from this phase is nothing less than second nature. You are doing repetitive work on the pattern or the sticking that you're working on to the point that you cannot not do it properly. The only thing you can do is execute it well at a high level. This is all about reps, reps, reps. The application phase is where you set some rules, so you will stay on this pattern for X amount of time and not move from it, or you will not move from the allocated voicings on your practice pad kit or on your kit. You stay exactly where it needs to be, and you rep it, rep it, rep it, rep it. This is when you put a metronome on and a podcast on or a show on, and you lose hours to this. This phase is where the real growth happens. And then phase 3 or stage 3, I call exploration. You are now free, young grasshopper. Once you've done a really good amount of work and things are starting to feel quite natural, it's time to explore. So you take the idea of whatever you've been working on, and then you try to make it your own. No more rules, no more boundaries. You take risks. You try things out, you fall, you nail it, you learn from what you're not doing right and what you are doing right, and you grow. So these are my 3 phases for the perfect practice formula: foundation, application, exploration. Now, how long do you spend on each phase? Well, I'll tell you one thing, it is not an even split, far from it. I would say roughly 5% of your total practice time that you have that day is spent on the foundation phase, so phase 1. Just enough to get clear at what you're doing and doing it to the highest standard. And then, most importantly, you are going to be spending about 85 to 90% of your total practice time in the application phase. Because as I mentioned, this is where the real work gets done, the rep work. Whenever I have a student come back to me and they haven't made progress in a certain area, it's purely because they have not spent enough time in stage 2 or phase 2. The application stage is imperative to improving on the kit. 85 to 90% of your total time. If you've got 2 hours to practice, you're spending 1 hour 45 on repping the work, repping the sticking. And then with the exploration phase, it gets the remainder 5 to 10% that you've got left over. But only once the reps are locked in and the idea feels second nature. Now, over time, you'll actually spend less time in the application phase and more time in the exploration phase. But this will actually occur naturally once the work's done with the reps. You cannot be creative and expressive with an idea if you have not built it into your arsenal of tools that you can pull from. Second nature. Most drummers are stuck with their practice sessions and their growth in general because they're jumping from stage 1 to stage 3 and they're missing out the most important stage, the work. They're barely touching on ideas, skimming past all the work, and then trying to use it within their playing straight away. And the problem is you feel like you're practicing, but you're actually not improving at all. And to be honest, and I know you know what I mean, this is actually one of the worst feelings that you can feel as a player, that you're not developing. It's like you're running in the mud. And then you start wondering, is your time just being wasted and should you even bother? And you even start questioning if you've hit your ceiling as a player, if this is it. But let me make this very, very clear to you. You have not hit your ceiling. No one has. You're just not working the way that you used to when you acquired your skills in the first place. You've got a lot on your mind, you're bogged down with so much more than when you were younger, and you're missing the most crucial part to progress. The sweat, the work, the reps. Don't forget it. The goal is not to race through your practice material. There is no finish line here and there is no winning. The goal is to simply show up and do the work so that you can become someone in the process, so that you can experience some true growth. Every time you sit down to practice, you're not just playing some notes. You're making a declaration about the type of player that you want to be, the kind of person that you want to become. So ask yourself honestly, who do you want to become? Do you want to be average? Cool. Just keep glossing over things. But if you're someone who wants to experience real change and real growth, great, easy. Just give your mind and your body the time and respect it needs to grow. And in order to do that, you just need to do the work. Earlier in the week, I was sitting on my couch looking at my books, and I picked up The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Man, I love that book. And this line stood out. Victorious warriors win first and then go to war. Defeated warriors go to war first and then seek to win. Practice is very much the same. Don't walk into your practice session hoping for progress. Walk in knowing that the work you're about to do guarantees success because you understand the simple but very effective formula. Step 1, foundation, 5% of your time. Step 2, application, 90% of your time. And then step 3, exploration, 5% of your time. That way you know you're doing exactly what's needed for real change. No guesswork, no hoping for the best, just results. Now, get off your ass, get off your phone, grab your sticks, and go get some real work done. You can thank me later. All right, let's leave it there this week. If you like what I'm doing here, make sure you put a comment below and let me know how these videos are helping you. Otherwise, head over to masterminddrummer.com where you can see my free resources, the courses that I sell, and a bunch of other information to help you out. Thanks for stopping in. I'll see you later.